Hey, all of my friends in Alberta, how are you? Hope you had a great weekend. We're going to talk about creative thinking, becoming an innovator. I'm not going to be able to improve anything. I'm not going to be able to lead anything. I'm not going to be able to inspire anything if I don't know how to innovate and create. Check out this video. It's about a minute, and then I'll have a few words.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
How about that? Do you remember that commercial? I remember it years ago down in the States. That was an Apple commercial. Talked about the innovation of Apple, the creativity of Apple. You noticed, just on a side note, how they tried to align themselves with some of the most recognizable icons of the 20th century. Innovation, creativity is a key to making things better tomorrow than it was yesterday. If I'm to impact a world that's so reluctant to change, if I'm to lighten the burden of my fellow man, if I'm to have success in business, if I'm to build the Alberta that we'd all hope to live in, if we're going to do that, then the bottom line is that we better have some innovative and creative thinkers. Now, truth be told, there's not a lot of innovation. There's a lot of rearranging of ideas and hoping you'll get a different answer. There's a lot of talk of innovation, there's a lot of hope of innovation, but very, very rarely do we have the kind of transformational innovation that's necessary in these changing times. Why? Patterns of thinking. Patterns of thinking. We all think in certain patterns. By the time we get to be the age that we are, 80% of our behavior is unconscious. So our patterns of thinking are ingrained. We see a problem, we approach it the same way. We see an opportunity, we approach it the same way. We see a challenge, we approach it the same way. And when I say we approach it the same way, I mean we approach it the same way mentally. Well, if I do this, then I'll do that, then I'll do this, and I'll do that. Sequential. It's ingrained in us. So much so that most of the universities that have done the studies tell us that it creates grooves in our brain. Our pattern of thinking doesn't take us to a place of innovation. So when I sat down and said to myself, I'm tired of being a bump on a log. I'm tired of never coming up with a great idea. I'm tired of being the guy who sits at the end of the meeting table and some other guy at the other end goes, I have this idea, and everybody goes, wow, that was a great idea. And I'm sitting at the other end going, ugh, I never have a great idea. I did as much research as I possibly could about creative thinking, innovative thinking. And you know what I came to the conclusion of? That creative and innovative thinking isn't based on it being brilliant. It's based on having a pattern of thinking that would lead to innovative ideas. This is the typical pattern of thinking that we utilize when we're talking about innovating in a business, in a community, in an organization. It's usually something like this. Well, if I had this many resources, I could do this many things. And if I could do this many things, then you know what? I might have these kind of outcomes. And if I had these kind of outcomes, I might be able to have this kind of impact. It's resource-based. If I have this many resources. Well, you know what that inherently does? That inherently defends the status quo. Because you're working off what you have right now. It inherently defends the status quo. And that's why we don't get true transformational innovation. We get a bunch of rearranging that gets us close to almost the same answer we're getting today. Now listen, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. if we're going to see and seize the opportunity that is around us throughout Alberta, if we're going to build this beacon of hope, then we better be innovative and creative. So here's the pattern of thinking that I've utilized. Now, you've Googled me, you know. We've gotten tons of awards for innovation. First of their kind in North America, first of their kind in the world. Because I'm brilliant? No, dumb as a rock. But because we followed this pattern of thinking. Step number 1, what do I want it to be? What does it look like, smell like, feel like, taste like? Why do I use those descriptors? Because those are the kind of descriptors that touch people's hearts, not just their heads. You got to be able to explain the why of the matter. So then you better think of your outcome in that sense, that you can describe it in real and meaningful terms. When it's all said and done, what's it going to look like, smell like, feel like, taste like, and what are going to be the benefits to myself and to others? I have to be able to explain that, the outcome and the why behind it. That's step number 1. Step number 2, where are we at today? Next to that, right, create courageous conversation. We got to have a truthful conversation, not a blaming conversation, not an attacking conversation, not a whose fault is it conversation, but a courageous conversation where we talk about things that really matter, and what we're really at today. Where are we really at today? Courageous conversation. What do I want it to be? Where are we at today? Step number 2 and step number 3. What attitudes would have to be shifted to get me from here to there? You see, I would suggest you it always boils down to attitudes. It always boils down to attitudes. If I'm trying to build consensus, attitudes. Trying to build collaboration, attitudes. Trying to marshal human capital towards a common goal, attitudes. Even trying to get resources, attitudes. If I can get the five most influential people to have their attitudes favorable towards me, how many of you agree with me that I'm going to get a greater likelihood of getting the resources I need? So what attitudes would have to be shifted to get me from where I'm at to what I want it to become? Trust? Belief? Is it a trust issue? Is it a belief issue? Is it a credibility issue? What is it that people are angry or bitter? You know, what is it that's preventing us from getting from here to there? 4. What activities could I do to shift those attitudes to take me from where I'm at to what I could become? Once you know what the attitudinal barrier is, the activities will flow very easily. And then and only then, what resources would be needed to do those activities, to shift those attitudes, to take us from where we're at to what we could potentially become. That pattern of thinking, I challenge you, put it on a 3x5 card and carry it everywhere you go for the next month. Filter all of your all of your problem solving, all of the things that you're doing through that pattern of thinking. Through that pattern of thinking. Now, in the handout that's on here, in the website, I've provided that pattern of thinking, but I've also added a couple of other patterns of thinking. A decision-making pattern of thinking, as well as just a general everyday approach to life pattern of thinking. I want you to check them out. You're a leader. Regardless of your title or position, you're a leader. And leaders are formal and informal in communities. So you are both a leader within your organization and you're a community leader. And at the end of the day, history will judge what we do with the opportunity that we've been given. To seize that opportunity, we're going to have to be creative and innovative. Because some of the things that we need to do, some of the things that we need to be able to accomplish, some of the mechanisms necessary to reach that full potential that Alberta has, guess what? They don't exist today. So we're going to have to be innovative and creative to make it happen. All right? We'll give you some more information later in the week. Make sure you check back. Be an innovator, be creative, think outside the box through your pattern of thinking. Take care, everybody.